July 7, 1996. Los Angeles International Airport. Egbert Rimkus stepped off the plane with his 11-year-old son, Georg, his girlfriend, Cornelia Meyer, and her 4-year-old boy, Max. The German family had saved for months for this trip. 2 weeks exploring the American West. Swimming pools, beaches, theme parks. The stuff of dreams for 2 young boys who'd never left Europe. The next morning at the rental office, there was a small problem. Egbert's driver's license wasn't valid in the US. No big deal. Cornelia signed as the main driver, and they loaded into a green Plymouth Voyager minivan. California stretched out before them, endless and golden under the summer sun. For 2 weeks, everything was perfect. They hit every tourist spot in Southern California. The boys splashed in the Pacific. They ate ice cream that melted faster than they could lick it. Egbert's camera clicked constantly. These were the memories that would last forever. But by mid-July, the money situation got tight. On July 12th, Egbert tried withdrawing funds from his bank in Dresden. Declined. He sent a fax to his ex-wife asking for help. That failed too. Not ideal, but not a disaster. They had enough to finish the trip, and the flights home were already paid for. July 22nd, 3 a.m. They checked out of their hotel and made a fateful decision. They were going to Death Valley. Death Valley. The name alone should have been a warning. This wasn't marketing. In 1849, a group of gold rush pioneers got lost there. Most survived, but barely. As they finally escaped, one looked back at the brutal landscape and said, "Goodbye, Death Valley." The name stuck because it fit. The numbers tell you why. The hottest air temperature ever recorded on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, right there in Death Valley. In July, ground temperatures regularly hit 200 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause second-degree burns. The park spans 3.4 million acres of nothing. No shade, no water, no cell phone signal. Just rocks, sand, and heat that makes the air shimmer like liquid. Every year, someone dies there. Hikers who run out of water. Drivers whose cars break down. Tourists who underestimate how quickly the desert kills. Park rangers have a saying, "Your car's air conditioning isn't a survival plan." On July 22nd, when Egbert drove his family into the park, the temperature was 100 to 24 degrees Fahrenheit. They stopped at Furnace Creek Visitor Center. Cornelia bought a German language map. They were doing everything right, acting like responsible tourists. The next day, July 23rd, they signed the visitor book at a geologist's cabin in Warm Springs Canyon. Based on the timeline, they must have camped overnight near their van, probably watching stars blanket the desert sky as the temperature finally dropped below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That was the last confirmed sighting. 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, gone. July 29th, their flight to Frankfurt departed from LAX, 4 empty seats. When Georg didn't come home, his mother contacted German police immediately. By August 14th, Interpol issued an international alert. Meanwhile, the rental company waited the required 30 days before reporting their green Plymouth Voyager stolen. Somewhere in those 3.4 million acres, under that merciless sun, a family had disappeared without a trace. The desert keeps its secrets well. In that heat, the human body can survive maybe 2 days with water. Without it, hours. The question nobody wanted to ask, were they already dead, or was there still time? October 21st, 1996, 3 months after the family vanished. Dave Brenner wasn't thinking about missing tourists when his helicopter lifted off before sunrise. The park ranger had one mission: find the meth labs rumored to be operating in Death Valley's remote canyons. The chopper flew south toward Willow Spring. Brenner scanned the steep slopes through binoculars, looking for plastic sheeting, generator exhaust, any sign of criminal activity. Nothing. Just endless rock and brush. Take us east, Anvil Canyon. The helicopter banked, following a thin stream cutting through the wasteland. Then sunlight flashed off metal. There, 2 o'clock. Through his binoculars, a green minivan sitting alone in the canyon wash. Set me down. As Brenner approached on foot, every instinct told him something was deeply wrong. The Plymouth Voyager was buried in sand to its axles, 3 tires completely deflated. But those tires had been driven flat. He could see the desperate tracks in the sand, where someone had kept going long after the rubber gave up. The nearest road was miles away. No one in their right mind would drive a minivan through this terrain. It was like finding a boat in the desert. The van was empty, locked. Brenner noted the California plates and radioed back. The response came fast. Reported stolen 3 months ago. Rented to a German tourist named Egbert Rimkus. The Interpol alert. 4 missing people. This was their van. Within hours, a full search operation launched. Park rangers, sheriff's deputies, tracker dogs. They started around the vehicle looking for any trail. They found almost nothing. Some food wrappers matching items inside the van. Disturbed sand that might have been footprints, but 3 months of wind had erased the details. No blood, no struggle, no clear direction. The dogs picked up a scent heading east. 2 miles from the van, they found a rocky ledge where people had rested. More drink containers. The scent was strong here. Then it vanished. Completely, as if the family had sat down and evaporated. More helicopters arrived, more personnel. Over 50 people searched for weeks, covering every canyon east of the vehicle. They were certain the family had gone that direction. It was the logical choice, heading toward higher, cooler ground. They found nothing. No bodies, no clothing, no backpacks, no evidence that 4 humans had ever walked that terrain. Investigators checked tourist sites across the park. The timeline was clear. July 22nd, the family visited Furnace Creek, bought a map, seemed fine. July 23rd, they signed the visitor book at Warm Springs Canyon. They'd camped overnight somewhere between those points. Then what? What made Egbert drive miles off any reasonable route until his van sank into the sand? By December, the official search was suspended, not closed, suspended. The difference mattered. It meant they hadn't given up, but they'd exhausted every lead. The green Plymouth was towed away and processed. Inside, maps, clothes, the kids' toys. Nothing explained anything. The file stayed open. Rangers kept watching. But as 1996 became 1997, then 1998, then 1999, hope evaporated like water on hot stone. 4 people had entered Death Valley and disappeared completely. The desert kept its secrets. The case seemed unsolvable. But 13 years later, 2 men who couldn't let it go would prove everyone had been looking in the wrong direction. The green minivan became a ghost story. In the years after the failed search, the missing Germans became Death Valley legend. Rangers told new recruits. Tourists whispered at visitor centers. Online forums dissected every detail. The theories came fast. Murder. Death Valley's isolation had attracted killers before. Charles Manson used these remote canyons to hide in the late 1960s. Maybe Egbert's family stumbled upon drug runners or criminals who couldn't leave witnesses. The minivan's bizarre location, miles from any logical route, suggested someone had hidden it deliberately. Faked deaths. Egbert's money troubles looked suspicious in hindsight. The failed bank transactions, the desperate requests for funds. Maybe he was running from something in Germany. Debt, legal problems, something dark enough to make him want to disappear. use the desert as cover, start fresh in America. No bodies meant it was possible. Then the conspiracy theory started. Egbert worked on hybrid propulsion systems in Dresden. Area 51 was 2 hours away. China Lake Naval Weapons Station even closer. Online theorists connected imaginary dots. Egbert was a German spy, caught accessing restricted military sites, eliminated by US authorities. For a while, it became an international incident. German officials demanded answers. American authorities denied everything. Headlines faded when no evidence appeared. But the simplest explanation was probably correct. They got lost and died in the heat. Wrong turn, breakdown, panic, bad decisions. It happens. Yet something bothered the searchers. Something didn't fit. For the Riverside Mountain Rescue Unit, the unsolved case became a wound that wouldn't heal. They'd done everything right, used every resource, applied decades of experience, found nothing. Two men couldn't let it go, Tom Mahood and Les Walker. Mahood became obsessed. He reviewed search reports constantly, studied terrain maps, analyzed weather data, read every theory online. And he kept hitting the same wall. Everyone had searched east of the van. The logic seemed perfect. East meant higher elevation, cooler air, better survival odds. The evidence pointed east. Those drink containers, the resting spot 2 miles out. The tracker dogs went east. Every professional agreed. But Mahood asked a different question. What if Egbert didn't make the logical choice? He studied the topography around Anvil Canyon, calculated temperature gradients, thought about what a panicked father in 124-degree heat might actually do, not what he should do. China Lake Naval Station sat directly south. On Egbert's map, it would have been the nearest marked landmark. Not a town or ranger station, but something. Fences, buildings, people. In Europe, military bases meant regular patrols, security personnel, help. Egbert wouldn't have known that China Lake sprawled across 1.1 million acres with huge sections of unmanned fencing. You could walk that perimeter for days without seeing another soul. Mahood's theory. Egbert drove until the van stuck, checked his map, saw China Lake as the closest marked location, walked south toward it, not east, into even worse terrain, away from any chance of rescue. Walker agreed. It was a long shot, but it made desperate sense. In 2009, 13 years after the disappearance, they got permission to search south of the van. Not an official operation, not funded. Just two guys with backpacks and a theory, hiking into the wasteland everyone else had ignored. They weren't looking for survivors. After 13 years, that was impossible. They were looking for closure, for answers, to solve the mystery that haunted them. November the 12th, 2009, Mahood and Walker headed into the wilderness south of Anvil Canyon into terrain no one had properly searched. 3 days later, they found something that would crack the case wide open and create a mystery even darker than the original disappearance. Day 3. Mahood and Walker had covered miles of brutal terrain south of the van, finding nothing. Their water was running low. Maybe this theory was wrong after all. Then Mahood spotted something, a scatter of items that didn't belong. Faded fabric, plastic, bleached paper. They moved closer. A debris field. Personal effects spread across the ground, destroyed by 13 years of sun. Identity documents, barely readable. Food containers with labels long since erased. And 20 yards further at the base of a cliff, bones. Human remains. Scattered. Weathered pure white by over a decade in the elements. Mahood radioed it in. Within hours, investigators swarmed the site. The bones were carefully collected and transported to labs. Initial assessment, too degraded for DNA. 13 years in these conditions had destroyed everything. The case would stay unsolved. But 4 months later, March 2010, scientists called with news. Advanced techniques had worked. They had DNA. The bones belonged to Egbert Rimkus and Cornelia Meyer. After 13 years, answers. Mahood's theory was correct. They'd headed south toward China Lake, making the desperate choice that killed them. But then came the problem that turned answers into deeper nightmare. There were only 2 bodies. Georg and Max were not there. The search expanded immediately. If the adults died here, the children had to be nearby. Teams combed every canyon, every wash, every direction the boys could have gone. Ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, weeks of searching, nothing. Not a bone, not clothing, not a shoe, nothing. 2 children had vanished as completely as if they'd never existed. The questions became impossible to answer. Could the parents have been separated from the boys? No parent would leave their children in this environment. If the kids died first, the adults wouldn't have abandoned the bodies. Could animals have scattered the remains miles away? The adults' bones were relatively contained. Both children completely gone. The probability approached 0. Could someone have taken them? Who? How? This was miles from anywhere. And why only the children? Theories exploded. Government conspiracy. Egbert caught spying. Kids placed in witness protection. Human trafficking. Criminals killed the adults, took the children. Something stranger. Death Valley has documented phenomena nobody can explain. Disappearances that fit disturbing patterns. But theories aren't evidence. Speculation doesn't bring closure. Egbert's ex-wife could finally grieve her former husband. But her son Georg, still missing, still unknown. Cornelia's family faced the same torture. Her body recovered, her son Max gone forever. 25 years later, the case remains open. The children are still listed as missing. Tom Mahood's discovery solved half the mystery and made the other half worse. 2 bodies raised more questions than finding nothing ever did. The most likely explanation is hardest to accept. The children's remains are out there somewhere in terrain so vast that even thorough searches missed them. Death Valley covers 3.4 million acres. Small bones scatter. Nature reclaims everything. But most likely isn't certainty. What happened that July day in 1996? Why did Egbert drive so far off course? How long did they survive? And where are Georg and Max? Park rangers still search with their eyes when they patrol that area. Hikers report anything unusual. The hope never dies that someone will find the final piece. The Rimkus family made one wrong turn and paid the ultimate price. Their story is a reminder that nature's beauty has razor-thin margins for error. And somewhere in that vast wasteland, 2 young boys remain lost, their fate unknown. Their resting place a secret the desert won't share. The case file stays open. The search never officially ended, just paused, waiting for the day Death Valley gives back what it took. Until then, the mystery endures, half solved, half lost. Beautiful, enigmatic, and utterly merciless, just like the desert itself.